Next item of business is Commission General Regulation 378, license, guide license changes, LCB file R006-10. Rob?
For the record, Rob Buonamici, Chief Game Warden. CGR 378 addresses changes to guide regulations. The only change that we discussed yesterday to what you have in front of you was everywhere that the date August 30th appears, that date would become August 31st. So that's the only change from what you have in front of you.
Anybody have any questions of Rob before I turn it over to the public? If not, Commissioner Ray?
We had George Corner was the only public.
I'm gonna
If
turn
you were
it over
doing
to
public.
in a minute.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Rob. Now I'll turn it over for public comment.
I'm sorry. George Corner was the only public comment that specifically mentioned this item.
George Corner, representing the Vet Outfitters and Guides Association. Testimony yesterday, I supported this, and I just add the question came up after my testimony about adding assault, a couple other misdemeanor crimes, and we looked at this the same way it was brought up in subsequent testimony, that a lot of these crimes are pleaded down to a misdemeanor. We wanted to leave that language in there and leave it up to the department whether to pursue revocation of the license, depending on the severity of the crime. Any questions?
You didn't expect me to ask you how many guides you did your group? Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else in the public want to comment on this? Before I close the public, I'll close the public hearing on it, bring it back to the commission. What's your pleasure? Commissioner Rain?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My only issue on this was and I really wasn't my issue until I heard the testimony yesterday. I'm still not comfortable with putting physical violence in here. And the prospect of, well, yes, people plead down to it, but I cannot see that, in my mind as being a real issue. I mean, you're guilty of what you're convicted of, and nothing more and nothing less. So, and I see the other items, theft and fraud, as being directly relevant to this, as opposed to, hunting is a rough sport, rough and tumble things do happen. I know I just really have a problem with physical violence as being a misdemeanor physical violence, which can be extremely minor, being a factor, and I don't see it as directly relevant, as was expressed yesterday by testimony from the public. And I would like to see that struck. And I'd also like to mention that there was a couple date changes from the original. I don't know if people in public heard that, if they were in here yesterday, and it was simply August 31st everywhere that August 30th appeared throughout the document. That was supposed to be August 31st.
Commissioner McBeth, you're an attorney. What did you think about the physical violence? You heard the Tom from Marshall County.
Yeah, I heard what Mr. Wilson had to say, and I understand it. I respect his experience as a prosecutor and his opinion. But in the end, I basically came down on the side of leaving this in and leaving it up to the discretion of the department to make that determination. There's such a varied amount of various types of physical violence and fact patterns, and I would trust the department with making that call on a case-by-case basis rather than completely exclude it. And then we have a potential for somebody who maybe really was a bad apple, and we really don't want them to be, licensed and don't have the capability of dealing with that issue. So I would rather see it stay in and leave it to the department to on a case-by-case basis have the discretion. And then in the end, this commission will have the final say. A little bit of discretion with the warning that the council is given that we have to apply these laws on a level basis.
I'm going to sort of depend on your expertise. If do you think it should stay in? I'm going to go with that.
But I will qualify that I am not have not now or ever have been a either civil or any kind of prosecutor like Mr. Wilson. So I do, take this position with, a little bit of, caution that he is, he's made a very good point. But I think overall, I just like the idea of the department making that call. They are in law enforcement, and they make these kind of judgments all the time, and I trust that the department will use this in such a way to really keep the bad apples out. But at the same time, if we've got some kind of a scenario that comes in that doesn't warrant a loss of a license, that that they will use that discretion to not exclude those folks from being licensed.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Then I'm ready for a motion.
You want to make the motion?
Commissioner Howell.
I'll make the motion. I move that we approve Commission General Regulation 378, guide license changes, LCP file R006-10, as written.
Date with the changes of August 31st in every instance. That wasn't in the original document. That wasn't what support material. There was still an August 30th here and there.
With the date changes from August 30th to August 31st.
Everybody understand the motion? Call for motion. All of the motion say.
Second?
Do we have a second to that?
I'll second.
Huh?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Capurro. Any discussion? Commissioner Rain?
Very briefly, Mr. Chairman. The only reason I'll be voting against is strictly about the physical violence. Everything else, I fully support that happened there. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Not seeing any other question. I'll call for the motion. All for the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next item on the agenda